But yeah, let's talk about some breakout candidates in the NFL right now because there's a lot of players. But I want to bring a guy to the table so that Matt can't because you
Wait,
see all
we
the
already got a
Niners
comment.
stuff.
We already got a comment about a guy to
We
start
already
it
got
out.
a
Breakout candidates. So I think okay, I don't think we should just start with Lance. I really don't. But if I'm
okay.
looking at breakout candidates, the first position I'm going to go to is second year quarterback. That is
Yeah.
always what you start out with because one, that's the most high profile position, but also we see that a lot of rookie quarterbacks look completely lost and they look in shambles. And sometimes it's not rookie necessarily second year quarterbacks, but guys that have been in the league for a couple years, they will have that crazy breakout season.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some guys it's the second year in Mahomes where he's benched. Other guys like Josh Allen or Lamar because he plays a little bit and then he has that breakout in the second year. Or it could be a guy like Josh Allen, for instance, where Josh Allen when he starts as a rookie, he plays a couple years, not that great, and then all of a sudden gets the star receiver and just blows up and becomes an amazing quarterback, maybe one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Like guys have him a lot of times top 3 in the league. Like he's that kind of guy, and he's the number 1 overall fantasy pick as well. So I don't know. I think that second year quarterbacks is a big spot for me. Now I will let you go first because of course the guy I'm going to talk about a lot. I think that's pretty clear with the posters behind me. But who stands out to you as a second year quarterback that's going to make a big surge, or do you not think this extraordinary quarterback class is going to live up to expectations?
I think there's going to be two surges, and I think one's going to be a lot bigger than the other. But I want to talk about the guys that I don't think will really surge. I think Mac Jones is going to be about the same as he was last year. They didn't really get any weapons. They got, Devontae Parker, who I think is pretty solid. But with Mac Jones, I think it'll be decent. They'll be with Belichick. They'll win some games. That's about it. Trevor Lawrence, I love Trevor Lawrence. I still think Trevor Lawrence is going to be a superstar in the NFL. I think he's going to be a multiple-time Pro Bowler. I think he's going to make the playoffs plenty of times in his career. But I'm sorry, Christian Kirk is not making that happen. I think he'll be better, but he's not going out there and having this is not Josh Allen getting Stephon Diggs and improving his arm. It's like Lamar Jackson, his rookie year still, but just adding in Sammy Watkins. Like you're not getting much difference. But I think the first one is, I'll talk about Lance second. I'm going to go with Zach Wilson because I really like what the Jets did this offseason. And I don't think Zach Wilson's going to turn out to be a Hall of Fame quarterback. If he does, props to him. I'm not rooting against the guy. But he's added some weapons over there in New York. And he has another year of experience. And he was not someone that I looked at getting drafted as being, okay, his rookie year, he's going to dominate. Because some guys, you're like, okay, they played against great competition. They've got the arm. They've got the skill set. Guys like Herbert, guys like Burrow, Kyler. Like it was pretty clear for a lot of people where it's like, okay, they're going to come in. They're going to look all right. They're going to be okay. Zach Wilson was, okay, he's coming out of BYU. The teams at BYU were always atrocious around him. He didn't really have any help. So what's going to happen? And he came out last year and he had to play in a system that Sam Darnold got ruined in. He had to go against Belichick. He had to go against the Bills. He had to go against the Dolphins, and he really struggled. But now, Zach Wilson, he's played another year in the NFL, or he's played a year in the NFL. And it seems like with everything that went on in the offseason, obviously it's funny. It's hilarious. Zach Wilson, his mom's best friend, all that stuff is funny. The thing that doesn't get talked about is when stuff like that happens, you just become, the cool guy, right? It's like in elementary school and high school, like, in those movies, the kid has sex with the teacher and everyone's like, that dude's awesome. Zach Wilson has become that. We saw their tight end walking in with a Zach Wilson GOAT t-shirt or something like that. Like that was the type of thing that he's bringing in. Like, I feel like there's some sort of culture, whether or not it's a good thing, the basis of it was good, but I feel like, okay, people are going to ride with this guy. They drafted Breece Hall, the best running back in the draft. They have Garrett Wilson, who I think is really solid. Elijah Moore, I really liked last season. I feel like he's going to be a lot better than he was last year. Do I think he's going to be a Pro Bowler in his second year? No. But him being an okay starter is a massive jump for him because last year it wasn't good. But I didn't expect him to be good. They got him weapons. And now I feel like he can take that, that stride to being okay, maybe he can have a chance. I think after this year, Jets fans will still have faith in him, which for Jets fans after 2 years of a quarterback, that's a jump. But now getting into Lance.
Can I talk about Wilson a little bit?
Yeah, go for it.
So, because I kind of like this take, and he's not going to be my top like rookie quarterback to have a breakout, but I mean, if we're looking at the situations of a lot of these guys, everyone wants to praise Mac Jones' situation and stuff. Mac Jones' situation is worse than Zach Wilson's this year. I don't really think it's that close because he lost his offensive coordinator. And let's not act like Mike LaFleur isn't a good offensive coordinator. He was drawing some sweet plays last year. Now, the Jets were not good, but LaFleur looked pretty solid, in my opinion, with not being able to work with too much. They had a first-round wide receiver. They shore up the offensive line quite a bit. There's still going to be some question marks, but they're going to run the football probably pretty well. Their offensive line is built to run the football too, and they have a system that I think that they could be a pretty like sneaky good offensive system for Zach Wilson. Now look around at some other teams. There's teams that are better, and then there's teams that are horrible, like the Jags and the Bears. So I definitely think it's like kind of middle of the pack in terms of situations for a guy. So I do think that's going to help him a lot. As the player, he's all right. I don't think he's crazy good. I don't think he's bad, but he's okay.
I think that's definitely fair. Like I'm not expecting him to come out, like I said, and be Justin Herbert year two, Joe Burrow year two, or anything like that. But I think he could come out and he could be competent. But next up is definitely Trey Lance, because Trey Lance got to sit out a year, and for some reason, I don't know why people don't learn this. This used to be the way every quarterback came into the league. It was like you draft him, he sits, you start him his second year. Maybe the starter gets hurt and he starts week 6 or 7 or something like that. But most guys, used to come in and it would take a while. Even if they were the number one overall pick, it was like, okay, you back up for 4 weeks, then you'll come in. We saw that with Baker Mayfield, came in and Tyrod Taylor started. We saw that with Justin Herbert, came in, Tyrod Taylor started. For some reason, Tyrod Taylor has a theme. But Trey Lance comes in and he's got Jimmy Garoppolo there. There was nothing the Niners could do. Well, they could have traded him for a second round pick, but they got greedy. And unfortunately, they couldn't do that. So they had to wait him. And for them trying to win that year, probably Garoppolo might have been the better option to try and really contend that season. He got them to the NFC Championship game. But if they wanted to win long term, they knew it was Lance. It's just like when the Chiefs did with Patrick Mahomes. Alex Smith, they were like, we know Alex Smith can get us to the playoffs and get us to, do all right. Well, he didn't, but they tried. But like he had been to the playoffs multiple times. They were like, hey, let's see Patrick Mahomes work in the system, learn it, because Andy Reid is difficult. You do not want to be a rookie in Andy Reid's system as a quarterback. It's a very tough system. He learns it, and all of a sudden he comes out and everyone's like, this guy's the greatest quarterback ever. But after that first year, it was like, okay, Mahomes, yeah, we've heard some things in camp, but like he wasn't starting over Alex Smith. Alex Smith isn't very good. Alex Smith, yeah, he's an average quarterback that can win you some games, but he doesn't really push the ball downfield. He kind of checks it down a lot. What does that sound like? Jimmy Garoppolo. Trey Lance isn't Patrick Mahomes, but the guy he was sitting behind is very similar to the guy Patrick Mahomes sat behind. And the situation, I think, is pretty similar. I think he's going to do great, and he's got weapons. He's got a scheme. He's got a system, and he's got experience. Matt, you can take it away. You can talk about Lance more.
Yeah. So I think it's funny that you bring up Alex Smith too as the guy, because like that was the former kind of bridge. I know he got drafted by the Niners and wasn't truly a bridge, but at the time he was a bridge to Kaepernick. That's the same dude, which is just funny to me because now we're talking about another 49er, right? So I was huge on Trey Lance coming out of North Dakota State. I've been super pumped about him. I have a Trey Lance jersey. I love the film. Now, I think the thing that we have to remember is that Trey Lance is still an extremely raw player. So I don't know if this is his breakout year. I'll be completely honest. And I've so far in practice, and I get it's early training camp, the reports have been really bad. They've been really bad. Like he went like 3 of 14 the other day in practice. Like it's been rough. Now, when I watched Trey Lance last year, I knew he was going to be super raw, but I liked a lot of what I saw. Now, fast forward, we're seeing like how he's adjusted some of the mechanics. A lot of stuff seems very positive. Last year he had a finger issue that definitely screwed up a lot of his, his accuracy, his ability to hit guys in stride and stuff. And we would see that in the games. You would definitely see him kind of look a little rough, make a few mistakes early on in the game. But the thing that stood out to me the most was how he looked in the first half versus how he looked in the second half. When he would really start getting comfortable and just start letting it rip and would start booting out and setting up, he would have big throws. His second half numbers were significantly better. And when he would play, he would progressively get better. Also, each start, he would get better. So I don't know if this is technically is truly going to be like his breakout year. I'm really excited about the future. I love the potential, but as a player right now, he is still he's an extremely raw player. He's probably not going to hit 65% of his passes this year, which is a number that you're trying to hit, right? So I think he's going to maybe not have the highest completion percentage. However, in terms of maybe how we evaluate as a quarterback, it might not be the best, but in terms of for the 49ers, dude, he should immediately make them better because Jimmy Garoppolo was not good last year. Jimmy Garoppolo, now he had some good moments in Week 18 against the Rams. He was slicing and dicing the Rams defense. He looked pretty solid. But come playoff time, when the 49ers were banged up and stuff, Jimmy wasn't great. So I do think that Lance is definitely going to be a guy a great quarterback in the future. I think everything is set up for him, but I don't necessarily know if that's going to be this year. Now, that doesn't mean I'm knocking the Niners. The Niners are still an extremely slept on team, even with that. But I'm super pumped for Lance, but he's 22 years old right now. Coming out of North Dakota State, only started 3 games. So I don't know if it's this year necessarily. I think I know you bring up Mahomes, and of course we're going to talk about Mahomes and Allen. I know it's not fair to compare Lance to them, but those are the guys you want to be. Those are the players you want to become. So if we're looking at it timeline-wise, I think it's going to look a little bit more like Josh Allen. I think it's going to take some time before he really starts being able to be a super consistent quarterback. But the high play, the ability to change the offense and make adjustments, and we're going to talk about Deebo Samuel a little bit, but being able to use all your pieces in such a different way is going to be huge for the 49ers. So I think we're going to see a lot of flashes this year, but I think we might see some games where we're going to see Lance go out there and it might look rough at times. But I'm not going to panic. I'm going to be very patient with Lance because I think it's going to take a little bit. But I think in a few years, we're going to be like, holy shit, this guy is a monster. This guy is sick. This is the prototypical Kyle Shanahan quarterback. So I'm super excited for the future, but I don't know if I'm kind of pumping the brakes a little bit on his performance this year. I still think the Niners are going to be good, but I'm going to be wary coming into the season. I don't want to get too pumped up over a guy that probably shouldn't be maxed out in terms of his potential for at least a couple of years.
So we're talking about the 49ers system coached by Kyle Shanahan. This will be Trey Lance's first year starting in the Kyle Shanahan system. There's a certain, statistical trend that goes on with Kyle Shanahan systems in their second year starting. It's very similar to Bruce Arians and second year quarterbacks in their new system and how they do in their starting. Next year, not this year, Trey Lance should be pretty good. But this year, all he has to do is get it to Deebo or Kittle and let them run through 7 guys, and you're going to get yards down the field. He can throw the ball to the sideline. He can throw the ball over the top, and he adds that extra element of running the football. It may take 5, 6, 7 weeks, but once he gets really comfortable, I think he's going to be the 49ers offense is going to be moving. But he's someone that I'm really excited to watch. But let's move out of the quarterbacks. I'll kind of mention a guy that I feel like is going to absolutely have a breakout year that's not talked about nearly enough as he should be, and that's Rashad Bateman. Because Rashad Bateman last year looked phenomenal. He doesn't get talked about because the Ravens lost about every game when Rashad Bateman was playing because Tyler Huntley was the quarterback. But Rashad Bateman was clearly better than Hollywood Brown. And Hollywood Brown, I know he gets slandered. He's not a bad wide receiver in the NFL. He is a solid player. It's very different. The way he gets talked about, you would think that he's you can't dare to have him on your field. You don't want him as your number one, I can tell you that. But he's a solid wide receiver. And Rashad Bateman came in, and his route running was phenomenal. And he was able to do things that most rookie wide receivers aren't able to do. It just wasn't able to be seen on the highlight reel because Tyler Huntley couldn't get him the football. In practice, all the time, You hear about the Ravens, and they're like, Bateman just cooked Marlon Humphrey. He just cooked Marcus Peters. He just cooked this guy. He just cooked this guy. He just mossed this guy. Now he gets Lamar Jackson, his wide receiver or his quarterback, and he's been working with Lamar in the offseason. They're in the first ever or the first practice open to the public at the stadium this weekend. He went out and caught a double coverage catch with Lamar Jackson deep down the field in between two guys stretching out, which is exactly what he worked on all offseason. This guy is now going to be able to put up the wide receiver numbers that Lamar Jackson has been needing because he doesn't have the drop problem Hollywood had. And he's going to get open. He's going to create space. And he's going to be very, very good opposite Mark Andrews. And he will get talked about like Jalen Waddle got talked. I'm not saying he's not Jamar Chase. He's not going to get talked about like Jamar Chase. But the way Jalen Waddle was talked about, everybody was like, Jalen Waddle is so freaking good. He's so unbelievably crazy. He's incredible. Rashad Bateman is a filthy route runner with great hands, and he can move when he has the ball in his hands, and he can move before he catches the ball. This dude is an absolute stud. And people need to stop acting like the Ravens don't have a wide receiver one. Now you guys can talk. People can say their wide receiver core sucks. I'm fine with that. They don't really have a 2 or a 3 or a 4. That's yet to be determined, but they have a 1.
Wait,
and they have a pro.
They got a 3. They got Duvernay's a fine 3. I'm fine with him being
okay.
3.
Yeah. We can throw Duvernay.
They don't got a 2. They really don't. I mean, they have. The thing is, okay, but the thing is, they're gonna run a lot of 2 tight end sets. Like when I'm looking at the Ravens, I think Bates awesome. He's a sweet player. If I'm looking at all the second-year wideouts, I mean, there's a couple guys I really like, but Bateman's one of the guys highest on the list, just especially in terms of fantasy too, just because he's going to get a high volume. Like he's going to get a lot of passes to him. Now, the true number 1 in the offense is still going to be Mark Andrews, but I think Bateman is your 2 in terms of like your offense. And also, who's the tight end that you guys just drafted, McConnell?
Isaiah Likely.
Yeah, Isaiah Likely. That's probably going to be your tight end too. So you're going to run a lot of personnel where you have 2 tight ends and then 2 wideouts. So I'm fully expecting the Ravens to do a lot of stuff where they have only Duvernay and Bateman on the field. So I think he's going to get a ton. I mean, he's a third down monster, dude. Because a lot of people compare him to Keenan Allen just because of his like ability to get open. You see, I showed a little like I think it was like the ESPN video when he got drafted just a second ago. But dude, he creates a lot of separation. He was a sick player at Minnesota. He was so good coming out. I was super pumped for him. So I like Bateman a lot. I think he's going to be a really, really good player. I love him. A couple other receivers too, and I want to know what you think about these guys. But Kadarius Toney, Brandon Ayuk, what do you think about them? Now they have very similar molds too, which is funny because it's like super lanky. Oh, I'm just gonna destroy man coverage. A little bit different than Bateman, who's like, I don't know. He's kind of there, but he's more of like a little bit smaller, like little like shorter. I feel like than them. But I don't know. What do you think about Toney and Ayuk? I know that it's kind of weird for the Giants just because they've sucked. But I like what they're bringing in terms of the coaching staff, and I think Toney could take off there. I already talked a bunch about Lance, but the thing with Lance is that Ayuk has kind of been up and down like throughout his career, but they've basically every report has been that he's been completely locked in and he looks like a superstar, which is very similar to reports that were coming out about Deebo Samuel last year. If you guys want to take because the Niners players, they'll praise the guys that deserve to get praise. Like the guys that get hype so far in the Kyle Shanahan era have been the guys that have deserved to get hype. So I'm really pumped about Ayuk. I think he's going to be probably the number 1 receiving threat just with how they're going to use Deebo. And which is kind of crazy because you got Deebo and Kittle. And I do think that I honestly believe that in terms of target volume. But yeah, I mean, what about him and of course Kadarius Toney, who looks like he can't get touched on a football field sometimes?
I think it's downright ridiculous that a lot of Giants fans have like given up on Kadarius Toney. Like, there's so many people that I see and they're like, Kadarius Toney's just not that good, and I'm like, what? What are you talking? Like, have you ever watched this guy play? And maybe they look at the overall stat numbers, but like, I swear, you throw this guy a bubble screen and he makes 6 guys miss. Maybe he only gets 3 yards, but you're watching him and you're like, this guy deserves to be on a football field. Like, get this guy the ball. And it's the same thing with Brandon Ayuk. I mean, this guy is special, when he has the ball in his hands. And the issue last year, Jimmy Garoppolo could not figure out how to get the ball from his hands to Brandon Ayuk's hands because Ayuk was in this, I don't know, Jimmy Garoppolo kind of sees it as this mystical land called outside the numbers. Ayuk was there, he was open, the ball was not there because Jimmy Garoppolo could not get it there.
Dude, the game that killed me was the Cowboys playoff game. Cowboys playoff game, Brandon Ayuk is cooking Trayvon Diggs all game. Because you know how Diggs is. Diggs is a very big-time risk-reward kind of player. Dude, he got, like, missed. Like, there was one play that he caught the ball, picked up, like, 30 yards. It would have been a 70-yard touchdown if it wasn't thrown, like, literally out of bounds. Literally out of bounds. And then, like, the rest of the game, he's cooking them. Fucking overthrown. Like, it was just so bad, dude. But that's okay. The thing is, with Tony, I don't know how Giants fans are giving up on him, but I do kind of wonder if you might see a little bit of that with Tony too. Like that was the problem, you know. But I don't know. I'm stoked for both of them. Any other guys that you're thinking?
Yeah, I have one other guy because he's got a quarterback now that can throw the deep ball. He's got the best deep ball thrower in the NFL. Russell Wilson throws the deep ball better than anyone. And now he's got a very good, speedy, deep threat in KJ Hamler. KJ Hamler coming out of Penn State, I looked at him and I was like, man, they got him and Judy. That's a duo. They also obviously they had Sutton when they dropped, but I was like, that right there, like that could be a future duo right there without Sutton. It could be deadly. Then they both walk into the building and Drew Lock's throwing the ball, and they're like, okay, maybe not. KJ Hamler now has a quarterback that can get him that deep ball, and he's going to get behind a lot of defenses, and he's going to be in a lot of shootouts. I talked about it before. You don't want to be in a shootout with Russell Wilson. Why? Because I swear to everything, anytime you're in a close game against Russell Wilson, he does that stupid moon ball, and Chris Collinsworth is like, in a moon ball. And, you know, he's talking about, he's like, you know, the way Russell Wilson throws them, I call them moon balls. He says about 55 times. Every time it happens, boom, right into Tyler Lockett's arms, right into DK Metcalf's arms, right into Doug Baldwin's arms, whoever it is at the wide receiver spot, that's going to be KJ Hamler. It's not going to be Judy. There could be some plays to Sutton. I don't want to count him out. There could be some plays to Tim Patrick. But the speed of KJ Hamler is going to get behind a lot of defenses. And imagine Russell Wilson playing in Denver. That moon ball is going, that may go to the moon. I mean, that thing's going 80 yards every single time. And KJ Hamler is going to run right underneath it. He's going to be seen as one of the best deep threats in all of football this year. And he is, I bet if you look up a top 10 deep threats in football, he's not mentioned. Like he's not mentioned whatsoever. And he's going to be up there. And he's going to be really scary for a lot of teams.
I'm going to go a little bit different direction with you with this because I like where you're going at with it. But I'm not going to say KJ Hamler. I'm not going to say Jerry Jeudy. I'm going to say all of the dudes. They don't get talked about enough. Like that wide receiver core is so dirty. You have players that really work well together. You have a guy in KJ Hamler that has a very good knack for getting open. Did it at Penn State, I think. He came out of Penn State, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's why I was pretty sure. Yeah, you got him coming out of Penn State, right? You got Jerry Jeudy, who's definitely the way more high-profile guy. So it might even be hard to call it a breakout season just because of the expectations for Jerry Jeudy were so high. But you have like NFL breakout, yes. But you have Jerry Jeudy, amazing at getting open, right? KJ Hamler, he can take the top off the defense. Tim Patrick, all around, kind of like third down, like big target, goes and makes like big-time catches, a physical receiver. And then you have Sutton, who right now is probably the best of the bunch because he is just an all-around stud. He's a prototypical outside receiver that is going to go up, make plays with anyone, and is going to be a similar player to DK Metcalf, believe it or not. Now, DK is much bigger than him, but the plays that he's going to make are going to be a little bit reminiscent of that. All four of those guys are sick. All four of those guys are going to match up with anyone's corners, and there's nothing you're going to be able to do because those guys are going to consistently beat you. Which is going to be scary with Russell Wilson. Now, we can also look and go, okay, well, they're going to run the ball a lot. Yes, they're going to run the ball a lot. So I don't know if that's why I'm not expecting them to all break out just because they're going to be good players running the football. But in terms of like coaching staffs really being like, damn, dude, this is going to be, our work is cut out for us tonight. I think you're going to start hearing a lot of that throughout the NFL over the next couple years with this just extremely dirty receiving core, dude. Because if you're a defense, you're looking at that going, well, if we try to stop this guy, there's 3 other guys. Like, and that's the thing. I don't think a lot of people really know KJ Hamler's name, so that might be why. But KJ Hamler, like, he's up there with the other guys, I believe. I think he's going to be thought of it like that. So they got 4 guys that are legit NFL wideouts. That's probably as deep as it gets. Like, going into last year, you know, people were super hyped on the Cowboys receiving core. This one's better. This one is
Yeah.
probably better, at least deeper, which is why the Cowboys receiving core is so sick. So I don't know, man. This is going to be a nasty team, I think. I think the Broncos are really scary.